This book is called Disturbing the Dead by Kelley Armstrong, and it is a fairly typical murder mystery. The story itself is set in Victorian era Scotland, though the main character is actually from the 21st century. Like, she was a policewoman, but she was attacked while out jogging one day and somehow ends up waking up in the body of another woman who was also attacked in the same alleyway 150 years in the past. And since then, she's worked her way up to becoming the assistant to an undertaker, and they solve cases together. So there are a few people like in her immediate circle who know who she actually is, like including her employer, his sister, and this police detective that they work with. But for the most part, the only real influence, I guess, of her background on the story is the knowledge that she brings with her from the future about things like how police investigations should be run, since this, wasn't really a thing yet at that time, as well as certain historical events that have yet to happen or are happening at this time. So this particular story begins when Mallory and her friends are invited to a mummy-unwrapping party. Like, the idea of this event kind of disturbs her, like she finds it very disrespectful. But at the same time, for this time period, this is unfortunately not a really unusual kind of event, and they do end up going, if only to make sure that people treat the remains with as much respect as possible. But when the mummy is unwrapped, they discover that the body inside is not, in fact, a mummy. Like, it's actually the body of a much more recent murder victim, and this kicks off the investigation into who killed him, how he ended up wrapped in the mummy wrappings in the first place, and of course, where the mummy has actually gone. And let's see. This ends up tying into some discussion of, some of the early struggles that women were going through at the time for the right to attend university and to enter medical school, as well as a lot of the superstitions and stuff that people had around like the medical practice in this era. So I don't really have any strong feelings about this story. Like, I did read the whole thing, so like I found it pretty interesting, but I think I'll just focus on a few things that stood out. Like, I'm not typically very interested in Victorian era stories because I find like a lot of the focus on like the aristocracy and the social etiquette and whatever kind of tiresome. But I think in this story, I managed to keep my attention regardless because of the mixing of the modern, like the main character's more modern sensibilities, I guess, and behavior. And it also means that a lot of the people that she forms friendships with and stuff are people who are starting to make that change. So they end up being a group of characters that I do find kind of interesting to read about. Also kind of appreciated the references to the historical events at the time, just because it's stuff that I don't know too much about. And I think if you're going to set it in history, then having that context is kind of nice. This is not the first book of a series, and it's very obviously not the first book of a series, but it does do a really good job at giving you enough information about every character that it's easy to follow, despite having a lot of characters and obviously having many previous stories that it references, like without going into too much detail. So yeah, very well put together.